How's it going, everyone? My name's Divine, and today I wanted to put out a video for RuneLite of some of the best starter RuneLite plugins that I feel everyone should try out. Now, I know some of these might seem like a no-brainer for some of you, but I do feel like there's a handful that a lot of players aren't even aware of exist. Alright, so before we get into the list, I do want to start off this video and say that all these plugins do require RuneLite to be installed on your computer. If you don't already have RuneLite installed, you can get it from two different ways. First is going to be using the Jagex launcher, and you can simply just click on the drop down and select RuneLite. Now, if you prefer to have a standalone launcher, then beware, because going to the wrong site could run into your account getting compromised. Now, we can easily avoid this by going to the OSRS main page and just selecting the RuneLite link. This will take us directly to the proper RuneLite site to download the launcher from there. Now that we know this information, let's jump right into the list. Alright, so for our first RuneLite plugin, we are going to be talking about animated icons. Now we can go ahead and just enable this, and you can see that the icons actually begin to start to move in your inventory or on your person when you wear them, and it's just a kind of cool little effect. And we can just kind of toggle it on and off, and you can kind of see how this works out. It's just a cool little plugin that I like to run. Alright, so next up is inventory setups. Now this plugin's awesome if you haven't used it already. There is a lot of options, and I don't want to put all these options and explain everything here in this video. If you are interested though, check it out. You basically create a setup, and then you can quickly just see in your bank, it filters everything out for that exact setup, so we can just quickly gear up and get going to whatever we need to do it. I like to do this for all my Slayer tasks, farming runs. If you do any kind of skilling, this is a perfect thing to use. So number 3 is boost information. Now this plugin displays detailed information about your current stats, showing you how your stats are being affected by potions or other temporary effects. It also helps you monitor these boosts in real time. And as you can see, once we start drinking some potions, I have the little box up in the upper left hand corner. That's just the way I like it. You can go into these settings and kind of fiddle around with it. You can show like relative boosts. You can make it more in the middle. It just kind of play around with it and see how you feel and which way you like it. There are so many different options of how to show this information, but it's a great plugin to use. So number 4 is going to be large logout, and this is going to be exactly what you think it's going to be. Enabling it makes the logout button very, very big. I like it when I'm out in the wilderness. It just makes it easier to not misclick and things like that. Take it as you will. Honestly, if you're out in the wild, this is kind of a real nice little plugin to have enabled. Alright, so number 5 is going to be Logout Timer. Since we're talking about logouts, this one is basically a must-have if you don't already use it. What we can do is enable the Logout Timer, and this allows you to change your idle timeout on the game to up to 25 minutes. So instead of that 5 minutes and then you're getting logged out, you can now sit around at a bank for 25 minutes. So next up we have instant inventory. Now this one was a little hard for me to show on video, but what it does is basically takes the slight delay in dropping items or doing certain tasks that should be almost instantaneous and actually makes them very, very quick. I really do notice this when like cleaning herbs and things like that. When it's enabled, it's very, very snappy. But I will say it really is hard to show on the video when it's off and on, but when you're playing the game, you really do notice it. So if you think this might be for you, I would definitely check it out. Next, we're going to be looking at the skills progress bar. So I have it currently turned off. There are quite a few little options that you can play around with here, but let's go ahead and enable it. And what it does is actually gives you a slight bar under your skills tab to show you the progress you have towards, your next skill level up. It's just a little bit easier to read. You don't have to just hover over each skill to kind of know where you stand. I find it pretty helpful, and it's a nice quality of life upgrade. So number 8 on our list is Idle Notifier. Now this is going to be kind of a two-part thing. So you have to download Idle Notifier, and we can change, what the delay is. Basically, it's going to just flash the screen or turn the screen red or whatever color you actually want it to when you're done with the skill. Now we can go ahead and just kind of do a skill here quickly, and you can kind of see that it just pops up red. I've turned the notification delay way down so it actually appears pretty fast. But the only way to enable this, so we have to have this RuneLite plugin, but we also have to go into the RuneLite plugin itself And then we can go in here and we can actually ensure that send notifications when focused is enabled. So that is the one key piece that you need to have enabled for this plugin to actually work. Number 9 on the list is menu entry swapper. Now, if you're using RuneLite, you probably have this enabled and you're probably already using it. But for those of you that don't know it, basically what it allows you to do is actually shift click an item and then change how that left click actually works on your mouse. So I just changed it to actually use instead of wield, and then we can actually change it to drop instead of use. So you can kind of fiddle around with it. One thing to note though is reset actually puts the item back to its default state. So if you do know this app, sometimes that can be a little confusing if you start switching things around and you're like, I don't know how to get it back. Wield's not now in the list. All you have to do is hit that reset. Now this isn't all this plugin actually does. You can change a lot of different clicks, even how you click on characters, monsters, bank tellers. You can make everything so easy. So if you haven't really done this, I would dive into probably a deeper technical on this because it's so worth it to get this completely set up. It will make your game feel completely brand new. So now we're going to be talking about Entity Hider. Now this isn't really a necessary plugin. I find it very useful for making YouTube videos, and some of you just might like it, if you just have a ton of people around and you just kind of want to have that more area that looks clean without everybody in it. So what we can do is just kind of fiddle with these different settings, and you can see it just starts to turn people off, perhaps their pets off. We can even turn NPCs or ourselves off. If you really want to. It's just a nice little plugin to have. Like I said, I feel like more used for content creators more so, but I can see how if you're skilling and you want to make sure that, see your animation of your character, say you're in like a popular star mining or something like that, this could be pretty useful. Now we're over the halfway point, but we have up next Loot Lookup. And what this does is you will see that normally with this off, you don't have the option. But when we turn it on, you can actually look up drops on different NPCs. And it's exactly what it does in the wiki, but it's just a little bit easier. So you don't have to go to a web page and look up a different monster. It's all kind of right there in your RuneLite client for you. So it's a cool little feature. You can kind of play with the different options to see it a little easier, a little worse. You can get percentages that don't actually show in this tile view, but if we go back to the list view, it'll actually say the percentages of the drops of each item. So cool little thing to have enabled. Next up, we have the Quest Helper. Now, this one has quite a few different options, again, like a few of the other plugins, and I don't really want to go too detailed in here, but what we can do is you can kind of see all the different options. We can change colors, all that good stuff. But what we'll go ahead and do is just go into the setting, which is off to the right, and then we can actually select what quest we want to do. Now, you can filter through quests you haven't done, different things like that. But if we go here and we can just go ahead and click on the arrow, you can click on the name. It'll actually tell you all the requirements, whether you have them or not, all the recommended items, what you have to do for like enemies to defeat, things like that. And you can see a list of all the steps. Now you'll see the little blinking arrow on the map. We can actually show us where we need to start these quests, and it'll just show us arrows to, all the way through the quest. It's super helpful. So if you haven't already, I would definitely check out this plugin. Alright, so up next we have WikiSync. Now what this does is actually syncs this to your OSRS wiki site, and it'll actually update all the information from your character directly to the site. So let's go over to, say, one of the wiki sites. I'm just going to use combat achievements here to kind of show off this here. And what we can see is we can look up our account, and it'll actually tell us whether or not we have succeeded in any of these items. So we can see it actually marks green. We can look it up. We can make sure that all our skills are required, and we can kind of see what we're missing. It's not necessary to do this, but I just find it that I always had this enabled, and it's kind of cool little plugin. And now the next plugin is the Improved Tears of Guthix plugin. Honestly, this really doesn't do a whole lot. It's just kind of a little quality of life. It'll actually show you each tick of how much you're actually getting. So It's just a little bit nicer, I would say. It's not really a requirement. Honestly, half the time I forget I even have this plugin on here. It's just a little bit nicer. You can see that we can see the negatives and we can see the positives every time that we hit the stream. So nothing amazing, just a little bit nicer of an interface. Next up, we have Monster Menu HP. Now, this is a pretty cool plugin, and I highly recommend it if you don't have this enabled. But what we can do is we can attack a guard, and you'll see that their level is now their health. If we right-click, it'll actually blow that up, but it's not in real time, so we can turn it off. You can see that the level goes back to green. We turn it back on, and we can actually watch how much percentage, of their health they have left. So it's super nice if you're doing things like bursting monkeys or something like that, or even doing a slayer task where you have multiple monsters on top of each other. You can kind of see their health pool for each monster. Number 16 is going to be Tree Despawn Timer. Now, if you don't already have this one, I would highly recommend this one as well to get this plugin. And what it does is actually tells you how long before the tree will despawn after you start hitting it with an axe. So if you're doing things like forestry events or something like that in some of these worlds, it is perfect for that kind of stuff. You can kind of tell how long maybe you want to AFK for before the tree disappears and you need to go to a different one. Now, you can change this from seconds to a pie chart. I think there's even ticks, how many ticks are left on it. I typically keep it on the seconds. It's just personal choice, and you can also change, the colors of what you want it to be as well. But highly recommend this plugin as well. Next up, we have 3D weather. Now, this might not necessarily be one that you need, but it's kind of fun to play and change the game up a little bit. But what you can do is actually change the weather types. You can leave it on dynamic and it'll auto do this stuff for you. It just gives you a little bit more ambiance in the game itself. I find throwing it on like, starry or stormy, things like that. It's just kind of cool to throw on and get a little bit more effect in your game. Feel a little bit more connected to the game world as well. Alright, so number 18 is going to be Task Tracker. Now, this is a cool little plugin. Again, it's going to put an icon on that right-hand menu side. But what you can do is see your combat tasks and what you might need to complete. So instead of going to the wiki and constantly looking, this is just an easier way to keep track of that list. Or say you're on a certain monster, you can actually search this, filter this. It's perfect. And you can kind of tell what you still need to do, and it will update in real time. Alright, so number 19 is Picture in Picture, and this one's really meant for you AFK skiller type people out there, or perhaps you have another account that, just is slowly doing things like Nightmare Zone or Rock Crabs, anything like that. But what we can do is we set this up and say we're doing some sort of skill here, and then as soon as we focus out of RuneLite, we have this little Picture in Picture, and we can throw this on a different monitor. We can kind of shift click and drag this wherever we want, and it will stay above every other window on your desktop. So it's really, really nice, especially if you have that idle notifier. You can see that bright red screen come up whenever you're completed, and as soon as you click back to the game, the picture in picture mode goes away. So like I said, it's really meant for skilling. I don't really use it for anything else, but it is super nice to have. Alright, number 20 is the 1117 HD or GPU. Now, I have to talk about this one. You can see turning on GPU smooths out the game super nicely, makes everything look, a lot cleaner on the game itself. But if we turn on 117 HD, it completely changes the dynamic of the game. If you haven't already started using this, you have a ton of different options. Say your computer's not very strong or it's struggling when you turn this on, feel free to kind of play around with all these settings. I love this setting. It definitely makes the game feel new, vibrant, completely different from when it first came out, but in the good way. It gives all that dynamic lighting that you really, really wanted. So if you don't already use this, definitely give it a try. Or if you just want a smoother experience, definitely use that GPU plugin. Now that's all I have for you guys today. Those are the 20 best plugins that I say every newbie kind of needs to begin to use. I will say the 3D weather might not necessarily be one, but I really like it. It's kind of a fun little thing to play around with. Now, if you like this video, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe down below. It helps me greatly, and I'll see you guys in the next one.